Hey, what's up, YouTube? This is Jira, and I just received a message about the proper care for corn snakes, and I just want to say that I'm not trying to say I'm an expert, I'm not trying to say I know everything, just speaking about my experience and speaking about what I learned in the months of studying corn snakes. So let's talk about the care of corn snakes. Okay, first thing you want to do with your corn snake is you want to buy from a reputable breeder. I really do not recommend buying from Petco, your local pet store, because those guys have a lot of other animals to deal with and they can't give the proper care to a corn snake. So what I really recommend is buying from a reputable breeder, and that's buying online. It's a tad bit more expensive, but it's not that much more expensive than your local Petco. So I'm going to give you a link to a lady called Kathy Love. She's well renowned for breeding corn snake, and I can guarantee you're going to get a feeding, healthy, nice corn snake that's going to be a great capture. That's going to be a great pet for the rest of their life. So just check out that link to Kathy Love. She was great with me. She gives you a lot of information. So you really want to buy from a reputable breeder. So you thought about your corn snake. Now you need a cage. So you can use a glass enclosure, a Rubbermaid tub, and or a custom enclosure. Just got to make sure it has proper ventilation and it has a nice tight fitting top. And the dimensions of the cage is which is the size for a hatchling corn snake. You want something that's about 20 inches long by 12 inches wide by 12 inches high. This should last them until they're about a year old, and then after they're a year old you want to move them into something that's a 20-gallon long, which is 30 inches long by 12 inches wide by 12 inches high. And you don't want to have a baby corn snake in something that's too big. A 20-gallon long for a hatchling corn snake is too big. It can give the open area can give them stress. So you just want to make sure that you have that. And another thing is, you want to, as a quick tip if you're using glass enclosures, is you want to tape up. You want to put something on the sides, which you can see here. I have this paper that has pictures on it. Looks like a jungle. Tape up the sides. You want to tape up the back. And that's just for security purposes. You can use construction paper, towels, whatever you want. Just to add security to your snake, and a more secure snake is a happier snake. So now that you have your cage all set up, you want to get your heating elements. What you want to do is you can either get an over-the-tank heater and place it on one side of the cage, and it's going to heat up one side and leave another side cool. Or you want to get an under-tank heater, which you can place over 1/3 of the cage, 1/3 of the bottom of the cage, and you can it's going to heat up the substrate and heat up a warm side and still leave another side cool. So now that you got your heaters, I'm going to tell you what I do. I use two, an over-tank heater and an under-tank heater, and only because my house gets really cold at night, so it gets into the 60s, and I don't like that for my snakes. Even though corn snakes can't survive at temperatures that low, I don't really want it. So I have an over-tank heater and an under-tank heater, and you want to keep it about 85 on the warm side, 75 on the cool side, with a nice night drop of 80 to 70, and you really don't want your corn snakes to be below 70 degrees. And you want to get your trusty thermostat to control it. Only reason I have a rheostat is because I was gonna purchase my corn snake a thermostat, but I purchased these rheostats for for temporary until I can get a thermostat. But they actually work great for me. I have heard accounts of them not working, so I don't recommend them. But I recommend a thermostat. But if you don't have the money, it's best to get these because you want to have something regulating your heat source. So these are just temporary for whenever you get a thermostat. But they've been working fine for me. As you can see, it's about 84 on the cool side, about 75 on the warm side. 85 on the warm side, 75. Don't forget your digital thermometer. 5 on the cool side. Okay, so next thing is humidity. These guys don't require too high humidity. Usually the ambient humidity be fine. During shedding, I don't like to mist. Like I said, it can cause bacteria growth. It can mold. And these guys, if you have them in too high humidity and don't have proper ventilation, these guys can actually catch the respiratory infection. So I know a lot of people mist, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But I don't really like to mist. Two things you can do here. You can place a moist towel over 1/2 of the cage, about that long, and that will create humidity in the air. Or you can use a Rubbermaid container, cut a hole into it, make sure it's a dark container, not a clear one like this. This is a feeding tub, but a dark Rubbermaid container, cut a hole in it, put moist sphagnum moss in it, and place the top on it. And he's going to crawl from that, get moist up, and that's going to help him with the shedding. Next thing is the furnishings in your cage. You want to make sure you have a hide on the warm side. You want to make sure you have a hide on the cool side. Tight-fitting hides that only have one entrance. I really recommend those because your snake likes to feel the hide on all sides of his body, and he likes to know where the entrance is. Just like you, if you're hiding from a robber in your house, you don't go into the living room. You go into the closet because you want to feel all the sides, and you want to know that you're the only person in that closet. Just like a snake, they want to know they're the only thing in that hide. In those big log hides, there's two entrances, and it's really high up, so they can't touch all parts of it, so something else could be in the hide. You know, that's what they're thinking. So I really recommend tight-fitting hides with one entrance. Water bowl, not too deep for them to drown, big enough for them to fit their body into. Change the water daily. Substrate, you can use aspen bedding, cypress mulch, or you can use paper towels, or you can use newspaper. All those things will work out fine. Just don't use pine and cedar, and I don't recommend sand either. Sometimes you can provide a log for them to climb on. It's not totally necessary, but it would, you know, sometimes you get a snake that likes to climb, sometimes they don't. You can see that there's glaciers on the log. He actually uses his log to climb on, but you can give them that to climb on, you know, have something to climb on. And what I really want to stress is I see a lot of people with these big, nice enclosures, nice vines all over the place, spending all this money on the cage furnishings, but they're not having a thermostat. Please, if you don't have a lot of money, spend most of it on your heating elements and your thermostat. That's the most important for your snakes. You can get a water bowl out of your kitchen. You can make a hide from, you know, something, you know, a Rubbermaid container. You don't really have to use a log, you know, and then you can use newspaper, or you can put them in a tub. Just use most of your money on the important things, and that is heating, tight-fitting hides, water bowl, you know. So don't spend your money on, you know, huge water bowls. Unless you have a lot of money to spend on a thermostat, I really recommend that you buy, you know, a thermostat instead of spending your money on unnecessary things. So with that said, now you have your corn snake set up. You have him in his, you have his hides, you have his log. Let's talk about feeding. One appropriate size meal every 5 days for hatchling to yearling corns, and then from yearling to adulthood every 7 days. One appropriate size meal, and appropriate is the as wide as the widest part of your snake. So you want to make sure that that you're not overfeeding. At the same time, you want to make sure you're not underfeeding. If you're interested in breeding, you should check out this link. It's called the Munson Plan, and I'm going to place the link in the description right along with the Kathy Love link. But the Munson Plan is for breeders. If you want to breed your corn snake, it teaches you how to get, it shows you a schedule for feeding, and that depends on the snake weight and the weight of the prey, and that's to get the maximum size for breeding. So now with that said, let's move on to feeding problems. So if you have a hatchling corn snake and it's not feeding, first thing, you don't want to buy it from a pet store. Like I said, buy from a reputable breeder. Most of the time they will eat. Second thing you want to do is if you have a non-feeder, make sure your husbandry is correct. Make sure that it has tight-fitting hides. Make sure the enclosure is not overly large. And if he still doesn't feed, try live. If he doesn't feed on live, what's a good thing is to cover the entire cage. That's the front, the sides, and the back with construction paper, towels, or something that's not transparent. Leave him alone for 7 days. Introduce a prey item. Another thing to do is poke a hole in the mouse's head. I know this sounds cruel, but whatever. If you want your snakes to feed, you'll do it. So this is a good thing, because if you brain it, it's called braining it. When you poke the hole in it, the little juices or whatever that comes out, that smell drives your corn snakes crazy, and they like that smell, and they're gonna eat. So they could eat, possibly eat. So that's another tip for getting your corn snake to feed. Another thing is to place them in a paper bag, cover the top of the paper bag, poke holes in it, place them in there, leave them in there overnight, or use a Rubbermaid container that's dark. cut holes, drill holes into it, place the prey item, place the snake in there, cover it up, place it in there overnight. So that's it. Peace.